You're watching VinylicPumaGaming. What's up guys, back with another Fallout 4 video, and today I figured we could go ahead and talk about Raider Power Armor and why I ultimately think it was sort of a disappointment and a missed opportunity. After all, the actual visual design of Raider Power Armor itself is pretty cool. However, the problem is that Raider Power Armor simply provides far inferior defense and has the lowest armor health of all of the power armors in the game. So, in a certain sense, Raider Power Armor is the worst power armor type available to the player. So today, I'd like to talk to you guys about the advantages and disadvantages for power armor and what I think could be done to improve it in future titles in the Fallout franchise. So without further ado, let's get into it. One of the advantages of Raider Power Armor is that a full suit of Raider Power Armor has the lowest repair cost of any power armor in Fallout 4. In total, you will need 20 steel in order to repair everything from the arms, legs, torso, and helmet. Other power armors require more resources as you discover higher quality armors. So, for example, T45 and T51 require steel and circuitry, where T60 and X01 require a combination of steel, circuitry, aluminum, plastic, and even copper. Upgrading armor defense is also much cheaper on Raider Power Armor as well. Raider Power Armor only requires aluminum, where other armors may require aluminum, adhesives, circuitry, and other uncommon crafting resources. Raider Power Armor has a unique armor piece known as Tessa's Fist, which has one of the strongest legendary armor effects in the entire game. The Almost Unbreakable effect quadruples overall armor health for that specific piece. So if your armor had 100 health before, it now has 400. And this effect scales with defense upgrades or upgrade tiers too. And as a quick side note, I'm surprised that Bethesda didn't include any more instances of power armor that contain the Almost Unbreakable effect, as it is a really nice effect. And while you can get access to this particular armor, it's usually through console commands or through legendary modification mods that you can download. The final thing is that Raider Power Armor will provide the maximum stock radiation resistance like all of the other armors do. This means that you can wear a full suit of Raider Power Armor in high radiation areas and achieve the same resistances as you would for any other power armor. So if a piece of your power armor breaks, you can swap it with a Raider Power Armor piece that you would randomly find throughout the world and achieve the same radiation resistance. The only time this wouldn't be the case is if you have lead paint or the lead plating mod for your power armor and a piece of that breaks. But that said, you would at least recover some of your radiation resistance by equipping a Raider Power Armor piece that you can just regularly find throughout the world. Interestingly, Raider Power Armor isn't as common as other power armor types. There are a few guaranteed locations where this armor can spawn. However, you'll find that for the most part, you'll have to kill raiders equipped with this armor in order to get your hands on the stuff. And generic leveled power armor locations appear to only showcase T45, T51, T60, and X01 based on player level. And it's baffling to me why Raider Power Armor was never integrated into the leveled lists for Fallout 4. One of the more obvious problems with Raider Power Armor is simply the lack of upgrade options that are available. When it comes to pure defense, Raider Power Armor has only 2 upgrades, where every other power armor has at least 6. Now, to Raider Power Armor's credit, it offers similar damage and radiation resistance to the first 2 tiers of T45 and is much cheaper to upgrade. However, T45 really starts to pull away in terms of both damage and especially energy resistance as you reach the new upgrade tiers. This even extends into the arena of available power armor paints. Compared to other power armors, Raider Power Armor has no stock power armor paints for the player to apply or take advantage of. Excluding the overboss armor, every other type of power armor allows you to apply hot rod paints, faction paints, and in the case of T51 in particular, there are a bunch of custom paints that were added by all of Fallout 4's DLC. It's bizarre to me that raiders wouldn't take the time to paint or decorate their armor. Maybe instead of using things like lead, adhesives, or various metals, raiders would use oils, blood, and maybe even bone to decorate their power armors. And just like the more conventional paints that you would see on other power armor types, raider power armor could also provide specific stat boosts when all of the pieces are painted. Now, there is a really great mod out there called Raider Power Armor ChopShop, which adds a bunch of paints to Raider Power Armor that are really good. In fact, that's the mod that you're seeing in this particular video. Ultimately, it's just a shame that something like Raider Power Armor ChopShop didn't even make it into Fallout 4 Vanilla. While you could argue that there are lore reasons for this, I suppose the other thing is that you have access to less power armor customizations with Raider Power Armor as well. Now, for the most part, Raider Power Armor doesn't lose access to good customizations like calibrated shocks or the medic pump. However, you do lose access to certain things like the Tesla bracers for the arm pieces and the jetpack for the torso piece. And again, to be fair, raiders are incapable of developing jetpacks when you consider that their power armor is mostly just welded plates of scrap metal, but it is still worth mentioning that some of these customizations don't appear where they appear frequently on all of the other power armors in the game. Or at the very least, you can apply them to all of the other power armors in the game. And another problem is that Raider armor is heavier than most of the other power armors. On average and per defense upgrade tier, Raider power armor starts at a much higher combined weight of 102 pounds when compared to pre-war power armor, which weighs 92 pounds. Now, granted, a fully upgraded suit of T45 or X01 weighs more than fully upgraded Raider power armor. However, keep in mind that you're getting better defense per pound. Granted, I suppose this doesn't matter since equipped power armor doesn't weigh anything, where carrying the pieces themselves adds encumbrance or weight to your overall carry weight. The thing about Raider power armor is that it's supposed to be designed for lower level characters and perhaps some of the early game areas. The armor is cheap to repair and provides much better defense than your typical standard non-power armor pieces. And like the other power armors in this game, it provides full radiation resistance, meaning you could take this to the glowing sea or other high radiation areas and receive the same amount of radiation resistance that you would with other power armors. However, between the sheer lack of upgrade options and the lack of paint schemes, it really overall just hurts this armor's potential. The fact that you can't paint the armor nor upgrade it any further beyond its level 2 defense upgrade really limits this armor's viability. And to even acquire this specific piece of armor, you have to randomly find an enemy raider with it equipped, or you have to go to certain specific locations across the map that may or may not be located in higher level areas, which by the time you visit these areas, you probably have a superior type of power armor already. So basically what you have is a power armor type that is obsolete by the time you're even able to wear it. Granted, you could skip the T45 in Conquered, however there's a good chance that you didn't do that on your very first playthrough of Fallout 4. And while I suppose it makes sense that welded metal armor would be inferior to precision engineered steel armor, I wish Bethesda had done more to make Raider power armor a lot more viable. Maybe the pre-war power armors would still continue to be superior, however the Raider power armor seems like it could have had some more use within the context of the game itself. Now, with all of this said, I would now like to go ahead and talk about some ways that Raider power armor could be improved in future Fallout games. That is, if it reappears in future Fallout games. The first thing is that Raider power armor needs to be the first armor that you acquire. So instead of seeing T45 and having that be your very first power armor, you instead encounter some Raider power armor and you use that until you can acquire some T45 later on in the story. This ensures that the player will use this particular armor and also ensures that it will be used in the early game areas. Ultimately, Raider Power Armor needs to be incorporated into the game's leveled power armor location lists as well. And I think Bethesda or whoever develops the next Fallout game could even make little revisions to Raider Power Armor for the next game by simply making Raider Power Armor low-level armor and then making it appear for low-level characters. At one point in development, this may have been Bethesda's intention with Fallout 4. However, T-45 is a lot more iconic for the series, and they ultimately decided to allow the player to obtain that really early as opposed to the new Raider Power Armor. Now, if you were going to change the Raider Power Armor and make it more viable in the game, here's what I would do. As I mentioned earlier, one of the advantages of Raider Power Armor is that it's cheap to upgrade and repair. Steel is very common, while aluminum is a little more uncommon. Perhaps Raider Power Armor could be an alternative to the regular pre-war power armors that you can find that may not provide quite as much defense, but it's significantly cheaper to upgrade and repair. Perhaps Raider Power Armor could achieve superior damage resistance to, say, T-45 or maybe even T-51. However, T-45 and T-51 have much more balanced damage and energy resistance. As of right now, Raider Power Armor has defense that is on par with the T-45, however T-45 simply exceeds it because it has much better energy resistance and because T-45 also has access to more defense upgrades. Imagine if Raider Power Armor had the defense capability of T-51 but lacked the energy resistance of T-45 or T-51. That way, there's a benefit to using Raider Power Armor over T-45 and T-51 in some scenarios. However, when it comes to fighting the Institute or the Brotherhood of Steel, you're going to be way better off with T-45 or T-51. The most obvious thing would be to simply incorporate or set up more upgrades for Raider Power Armor as well. By only having regular or welded plate upgrades, the Raider Power Armor is severely limited. Like all the other power armors, it should have 6 defense tier upgrades. Perhaps some of these upgrades could also change the appearance of the armor itself, like it does with T-45, T-60, and X-01 armors. That could be as simple as a color change, or it could be as complex as adding additional pieces to the armor, like you might see with the Overboss armor from Nuka World. Another thing that I would say would be extremely important would be to add power armor paints for the Raider Power Armor. It's weird that there are none in the vanilla game, and you could even say that it's weirder that there were none added with Nuka World. After all, each of the different Raider gangs could have their own power armor paint that matches their aesthetic. Or at the very least, maybe the operators could have their own custom variant of Raider Power Armor. I mentioned this earlier, but I think a great way to implement power armor paints to Raider Power Armor was done extremely well by a mod called Raider Power Armor ChopShop by MadMax713 over on the Nexus. The power armor paint designs really match the aesthetic of the Raider Power Armor itself, and they even look a little better than the vanilla power armor paints. Granted, MadMax713 is using higher resolution textures, but even if Bethesda or whoever develops the next game doesn't, having unique paint designs for Raider Power Armor that boost special or other attributes is going to make the armor itself much more useful. In a certain sense, you could argue that the Overboss armor from Nuka World is a great example of how you could make Raider Power Armor more viable. It provides really good defense while also having fairly low repair costs. In fact, once it's upgraded, it's actually slightly better than T-51F while costing much less to repair. Granted, T-51 at the end of the day is probably better since you have access to power armor paints, more customizations like jetpacks, and you also have unique T-51 pieces like the piezo-nucleic armor and the Nuka-Cola paint version, which boosts agility by +3. Maybe you could give Raider Power Armor the potential to be better than some of the more traditional offerings, but also provide ways for the traditional offerings to outperform the Raider Power Armor. Just like the title of this video suggests, I think Raider Power Armor was ultimately just a missed opportunity. The concept behind it is actually pretty cool and reminds me of Asher's power armor from Fallout 3's The Pit DLC. Except instead of modifying existing power armors, Raiders went ahead and designed their own suits of cobbled together bits of sheet metal to defend themselves. And I think it's unfortunate that Raider Power Armor doesn't have much use from a gameplay perspective. Raider Power Armor could have been so much more interesting. Imagine if there were significant numbers of Raiders that all wielded power armor, or maybe there was a specific faction of Raiders that used power armor. And perhaps a great candidate for that would have been the Rust Devils, who already have the technology to modify robots, so who's to say that they also didn't have the tech to modify power armor? Speaking of the Rust Devils, I'm surprised that the Automatron DLC didn't really do much, if anything, with Raider Power Armor. It would have been amazing to see Raiders cobble together bits of various robots to form them into power armor suits. And while there are a few player-created mods out there that sort of do this, I'm surprised that the only thing that Bethesda did with power armor in that DLC was make a Tesla T60 variant. Really though, it's weird that the Rust Devils don't really make use of power armor at all, despite the fact that they probably could if they really wanted to. Hopefully Bethesda will revamp Raider Power Armor and even Power Armor as a whole in future Fallout games. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Alright guys, that's going to wrap up this particular video. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, and as always, take care, and I'll see y'all next time.